I'll tell you a little bit about the chapter that I did, which was chapter 48. And everybody here has been tonight, I think, really trying hard, and I'm going to try hard as well later, but not right now, to be hopeful. Okay, because that's how we feel. We've got to try and desperately find something hopeful. I didn't find very much hopeful in chapter 48, to be honest, but I did find something which really made me sit up and think. As Paul told us, the last few chapters of the book are talking about not what's happening to us, but what's happening to our enemies, what will happen to our enemies. If you'll remember, right, in the first time we were exiled into Egypt, what does the HaKadosh Baruch Hu say to Abraham at the Brit Bein Batarim? You should know your children will be strangers in a strange land for 400 years, and they'll serve. Vetagoy dananoichi. I will judge that nation that starts with them in the end. And that's what chapter 48 is talking about, specifically about Moab. The enemy of Moab. Doesn't matter which enemy he's talking about, but listen to some of the things which Yirmiyahu is talking about when he's talking about what God's going to do to Moab. So says God concerning Moab. Their stronghold will be shamed and dismayed. Moab's glory is no more. Come, let us make an end of her as a nation. Let's finish them off completely. You too, O madman, will be silenced. The sword is following you. You can see the analogies of what's going on here now. Moab is here in this, as I see it in this chapter, is the personification of our enemies, and they are going to be finished off completely. Yirmiyahu says, destruction and utter ruin. Kol tza'aka michoranayim. Listen to the voice from this place, Choranayim. Shod vashever gadol. Destruction and utter ruin. Moab is broken. Her young ones cry aloud. They climb haluchit. They climb to the highest places, weeping continually. A distressing cry of anguish. Listen to the next one. Flee. Run away. Save your lives. This is HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaking through Moab to the enemies, saying, run away because we're after you. It's over for you guys. And be like Aro'er in the desert. Run away into the desert. Surely because of your trust in your wealth and your treasures, you too shall be captured and you will go forth into exile. The ravager shall come to every town. No town shall escape. The valley shall be devastated and the tableland laid waste. Asher Amar Adonai, because God has spoken. Give wings to Moab, for she must go hence. Her towns shall become desolate, with no one living in them. Cursed be he who is slack in doing God's work. Cursed be he who withholds his sword from blood. This is a really powerful prophecy from Yirmiyahu, from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through Yirmiyahu, on what will happen to our enemies after we have been punished through their hand. It's that same old question that we have, isn't it, that we have with Pharaoh. It's not fair. Why did Pharaoh get punished? God hardened his heart, wasn't his fault, etc. like that. And all those questions about free choice. Here, there's no question about that. His time is up. And he says here, Moab has been secure from his youth on, but his days are coming to an end, declares God. I will send him to those who will decant him. They shall empty his vessels and smash his jars. It is a prediction of utter destruction on the enemies of Israel. And Moab, all I'm doing is reading you these psukim. I'm not making anything up here. Moab shall be shamed because of Chomesh, and as the house of Israel was shamed because of Bet-El, on whom they relied. How can you say, we are warriors, valiant men for war? Moab is to be ravaged. His towns have been entered. His choice young men have gone down to the slaughter, declares the King whose name is the God of hosts. The doom of Moab is coming close. His downfall is approaching swiftly. And this chapter goes on. I happen to have chosen one of the longest I didn't choose it, actually. It was the only one that was left. But maybe now the penny's just dropped. Okay, right. Anyway, it's one of the longest chapters, and it goes on and it goes on and it goes on about the destruction of Moab. Moab is shamed, dismayed. Howl and cry aloud. Moab is ravaged. Judgment has come upon the tableland of Moab, etc. The might of Moab has been cut down. His strength has been broken. So I think somebody asked, I can't remember who it was now, might have been Paul. Was it you, Paul, that said, are we comforted if our enemies are destroyed? Well, I think we're comforted if our enemies are destroyed and therefore they're no longer able to harm us. So not just, I think the question is a fair question. Do we rejoice in our enemy's downfall for our enemy's downfall's sake? No, we don't, because that's not the way we are. But what we do rejoice in, if our enemies are destroyed and utterly destroyed, and destroyed to the level that Moab is described here in this chapter, what we do rejoice in is the fact that they will no longer have the power to be able to harm us in the way that they have previously. Paul's dying to say something.
I just look at it. Read the last verse.
Okay, let's go to the last verse of the chapter. Where are we? Here we go. The last two verses. Woe to you, O Moab! The people of Chomesh are undone, for your sons are carried off into captivity, your daughters into exile. But I will restore the fortunes of Moab in the days to come, declares God. Thus far is the judgment of Moab. I wasn't going to say that, was I? It didn't fit. It didn't fit in with what I wanted to say. So, and the last was the next chapter. We're not going there either. Okay. So whilst Matan are still, oh wait a minute, something's happening over here.
Rabbi Jonathan.
Okay, so I'm not sure that this is gonna. Yeah, I'm not sure this is going to work with the Matan Hadran. We've got feedback and all sorts of things. I'm not sure it's going to work. So we'll perhaps do our own Hadran. But let me therefore summarize. Maybe I started off on Sunday with the overview to begin it. Let me bring it round full circle. Just as Karen Miller-Jackson used the same material as I did from Sunday for her at the beginning of her talk, I'm going to use the same material as she has to a degree for the end to sum all of this up. And it's chapter 31. It's that most famous of Psukim, the song we're all familiar with, Mama Rachel weint. Mama Rachel. Oh. I don't know. Is that coming from you? Oh, okay. I thought you were doing Mama Rachel weint then for us. I thought, now that was very clever. How did you know I was going to do that? That would have been very impressive. Okay, Mama Rachel is crying for her children. So let's just remind ourselves of the Psukim. Kama Hashem kol beRamah. There's a voice in Ramah. Ramah is a dual meaning here. Ramah is a place. We know about Ramah, don't we? Because where Shmuel lived. But it's also Ramah means the heights. Okay, Kol Ramah. Where are we right now? Ramat Poleg. We are in a Ramah. Kol Ramah Nishma. Kol Hashem Kol Ramah Nishma. A voice is heard in Ramah. Nehi Bechi Tamrurim Rachel Mevaka al Baneha. This wailing, this bitter weeping, Rachel is crying for her children. She refuses to be comforted. about her children? Ki einenu. Because they are not there. They are gone. Who's she crying for? She's crying for the children that aren't there. Who are we crying for here in Ramah? Here in this Ramah, Ramat Poleg. Who are we crying for? We're crying for our children. These ones here on the pictures that are on the table there. We're crying for these children. And why are we crying for these children? Ki einenu. They're not here. They're over there with those animals. Okay. We're crying. We are Rachel. We are the Rachel now who refuse to be comforted. We can't be comforted because our children are not there. Einena. So this is where we are. If you look at that first pasuk that we've quoted, it's pasuk Tet Vav of chapter 31. This is us. We are Rachel. Rachel is the picture of Bnei Yisrael crying for our children. And we refuse to be comforted. We will not be comforted until every single one, last one of them, are brought back to us. Some of them can't be brought back to us. We've lost so many of our children. They're not there, and we can't be comforted. But the next pasuk comes along and says, wait. Kama Hashem. So says Hashem, restrain your voice from crying. Stop crying. Enough of your crying. And your eyes from tears. Why? There is a reward for pu'ulatech. What does that mean? Po'el, your work. And as Karen said, this midrash in Eicha Rabbah, which is at the bottom of the page here, you want to read it, it's very easy to read and translate, actually, because Karen has produced it here with an Nekudah. It's very simple. Read it. It's very clear. That midrash is talking about Rachel giving the simanim, the signs, to Leah. But I want to say something different. There is a reward for your work. I've just said that we are Rachel. We are the Rachels crying here for our children. What are we all doing here night and day? We're running around working. This one's running up to deliver something to the soldiers in the north. This one's running down to deliver something in the south. Somebody else is going to pick vegetables. Somebody else is going to buy supplies for the soldiers. Somebody else is looking after the children here, the Gananot. From the kids that have come up from the south. Some other people are busy arranging accommodation. Every single one of us. There's not a single person around here who has done nothing. We're all doing what? We're doing pilot. We're doing work. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Ki yesh sachar lepu'ulatech. There will be a reward for your work. You're not working for nothing. None of us are doing this for anything other than for our Kadosh Baruch Hu to give us something back, not because we want it for us. And what did he say? Ki yesh sachar pu'ulatech num Hashem. Hashem says there will be a reward for your work. What will be that reward? What are the next pasukim? Vashavu me'eretz oyev. They will return from the land of your enemy. That is the reward for your work. That is the reward for the work that we've all done in learning Yirmiyahu. That, Bezrat Hashem, will be the reward for all the things that we've done, our community and everybody else's community and the whole of the country and the whole of the Jewish world, except for the lunatics that are on the fringes. That's Pu'ulatech, that Sachar will be the Shavu Me'eretz Oyev. They will return from the land of their enemies. V'yesh tikva la'achritech. And there will be tikva. There will be hope. At the end of days, there will be hope. There will be hope. We are facing an existential threat. Let's not make any bones about it. We are facing an existential threat here in Israel. But ba'achritech, what does that mean, ba'achritech? Means at the end of time. This is, at the end of the day, there will be, what will there be? There will be ha-tikva. We will have our land, symbolized by our national anthem, ha-tikva. Yesh tikva la'achritech. At the end, they will come back from the land of their enemies, and there will be hope at the end. Nu'um Hashem, so says Hashem. And here comes the three words which are the most powerful. V'shavu vanim ligvulam. And the children, v'shavu vanim, the children will return to their borders. And that's what I wanted to tell you, the story about location, that David mentioned location about Anatot. So about 18 months ago, or something like that, maybe a bit, I don't know when it was anyway, my son got married. My final son to get married got married, and he got married in a place called Yodfat. Okay, Yodfat is in the north, very close to where where he was living. Got married in a place called Yodfat. Yodfat was the site of ancient Yodfat was the site of the second most bloody battle in the destruction of the second temple. After Yerushalayim, it was before Yerushalayim, chronologically, it was in 63 CE, 7 years before the destruction of Yerushalayim. But second only to the destruction of Yerushalayim was the destruction of Yodfat, when the north was overrun. And that was the final, Yodfat was the final battle against the onslaught of the Romans. And where they got married was in a place which was just in front of ancient Yodfat. And this was not planned like this, but it worked out like this. The chuppah was meant to be in a certain place in this venue. And for one reason or another, it couldn't be. And at the last minute, they had to put it somewhere else. And I was facing them as giving them a bracha under the chuppah. The chatan and the kala were facing me, and I was facing them. Now, you imagine if you've got two people stood next to each other. We've got two ladies at the end of the table there, sat next to each other. If their shoulders are together, there is a gap between their heads, obviously, because their shoulders are together. They were stood together, the chatan and the kala. And through the gap between their heads, I could see straight ahead with only one thing, and that was the ancient hill of Yodfat. I was speaking to them, and I was facing the ancient hill of Yodfat. And I didn't know that I was going to be facing the ancient hill of Yodfat because the chuppah was meant to be somewhere else. And what I said under the chuppah was this. Both of these people, this chatan and this kala, had been the first in their families to make aliyah. And they had brought their families with them at a later date. The families had followed on. He was the first of my children to make aliyah, and his wife was the first in her family to make aliyah. My son was the first, probably for 2,000 years, and I said this out there under the chuppah, for 2,000 years since the Battle of Yodfat, probably, that somebody from my family had worn the uniform of a Jewish army. He had been a sniper. He's now back down in the south. He had been a sniper during his service, and he had proudly worn that uniform of the Jewish army. And I said under the chuppah, when I could see Yodfat, which was a place of destruction of the Jewish people, where are the Romans today? The Romans today are the Moab that we've just described in that chapter. And where are we? V'shavu vanim ligvulam. Our children, these two that I was talking about then, our children, all of our children and grandchildren who are here in Eretz Israel, those of us who've got children and grandchildren who are serving in the army or whatever they're doing for their bit, they are the personification of Yirmiyahu, v'shavu vanim ligvulam. That idea that there is sachar lepu'ulatech, there is reward for what we are doing, this learning, this work, this volunteering, this kindness, this chesed, this achdut that is around at all times now that we've not seen probably for 50 years. Maybe even longer than that. Probably the last time we had this achdut was probably before the 6-Day War, when we were looking down a barrel in 1967, the beginning of 1967, when it looked so bad that the government had already dug mass graves. We all came together in the country and in the world, which is probably the most achdut we've had since that time. And there is sachar lepu'ulatech, says the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And what will happen is v'shavu me'eretz oyev. They will come back. We have to believe that. We have to work for it. We have to believe that that's our reward. And at the end of the day, yesh tikvah. la'acharitech. At the end of days, there will be hope. Why? Ni'um Hashem, because Hashem says so. And v'shavu vanim ligvulam. They will return. Our children will return to their borders, to our borders. They will bring us with them. And that's what's happened for many of them. My family is not unique in any way. I'm sure if I was to ask you, there'd be a whole bunch of you who would tell me the same thing, that your children made Aliyah and then you followed them along. That's happened to many of us. V'shavu vanim ligvulam. The children have dragged us back to our borders. And this is the next pasuk. Shamoa shamati Ephraim mitnoded. I have heard Ephraim, as we heard from Karen. Ephraim represents the lost tribes. Ephraim represents the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom of Israel, and they want to come back. And we're told that Kadosh Baruch Hu says that pasuk that we sing so beautifully on Rosh Hashanah. Habena yakil on Yom Kippur. Habena yakil Ephraim im yeled sha'ashuim. Ephraim is a dear son to me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not abandon us. And at the end of the day, we will return. Our children will return. They'll return from Eretz Oyev. There is tikva, and